I want to go across live and exclusive at this time to Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal. He's joining us on India Today Live. Minister Goyal, welcome. I want to start by asking you about the impact you think this 1 lakh crore rupees that the Union government has left on the table for the direct taxpayers is likely to have on spurring demand. Earlier, the government's focus was on boosting infrastructure spending and using that as a multiplier for growth. Now you've left more money on the table for the middle class in the hope that that will spur demand. To what extent do you think this is going to provide additional growth to the Indian economy and take us towards that target of 8% real growth which is required to be able to become Viksit Bharat by 2047? Minister Goyal, welcome.
Thank you, Rahul. I think what Prime Minister Narendra Modi has demonstrated is a delicate balance between fiscal prudence, growth, welfare of the people of India, and a long-term roadmap towards a developed and prosperous country. You have to see his budgets in conjunction with past budgets. After a very serious and outcome-oriented focus on infrastructure investments, this thrust on boosting domestic consumption and demand-led growth is a fantastic idea. The middle class is truly going to be benefiting a big deal with everybody earning 12 lakhs, of salary earners up to 12.7 lakh, now paying zero taxes. So in a way, Rahul, almost the entire middle class burden has been taken away from them. Almost the entire middle class will be almost tax-free. Now that will encourage consumption demand. That consumption demand offered is also on the back of EMIs and it adds to the credit dispersal. The overall demand for goods and services as it increases will lead to increase in trade, increase in manufacturing, domestic industry gets a fillip. That results in investments flowing into the country domestically and internationally. So I call it the virtuous cycle of growth. That was largely centered around investment earlier. Now we will see growth around investment and consumption. That's a perfect mix which has helped other countries become developed nations.
Minister Goyal, the chief economic advisor said that the government's assessment was that the slowdown in the second quarter of this fiscal was temporary and that growth would pick up from here. If that is indeed the government's thinking, I want to understand why is the growth target for next year only in the range of 6.3 to 6.8%? Could you or should you not have set a more ambitious growth target upwards of 7%, closer towards that 8%, at least aim to get there, which is really what is required to achieve the Prime Minister's target of a developed country by 2047? Are we not punching hard enough or trying to aim for higher growth by being very conservative in these growth targets?
We must bear in mind that we still have two wars which are going on. We must bear in mind that global growth has been very sluggish. Global trade has been even more stretched. So we have to factor in the global situation. We have to factor in the problems that the world is facing. And accordingly, I think being conservative is more prudent rather than coming back to your channel next year and having to answer why we did not meet our targets.
Minister Goyal, since I have this opportunity, I want to ask you about...
We would rather outperform what we have targeted.
There is some logic to being conservative in targeting, but an ambitious target also sends a message that the government will then do what is required to be able to push in that direction, which would be above 7%, but I understand the logic that you're giving. So I want to use this opportunity to talk a bit about your reading as Commerce and Industry Minister of the new tariffs that American President Donald Trump is threatening against countries like India, particularly in the pharma sector. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to go to the United States in a couple of weeks from now in February. There was a limited trade agreement you were working with Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo last time round. What is the status? Do you see a limited trade agreement coming through? And as Commerce and Industry Minister, how concerned are you about these new tariffs that the new American president is threatening against our economy?
I would just like to clarify that the current round of tariffs are not targeted against India. On the pharma goods, we still don't know what will be the contours of their trade action. But by and large, you must bear in mind that under Prime Minister Modi, this is the fourth US administration. He has worked with the Obama administration, Trump 1 administration, Biden administration, and now Trump 2. And every subsequent engagement has only strengthened the strategic and comprehensive partnership and our relationship between the two countries. President Trump and Prime Minister Modi share very strong bonds of friendship. They are two leaders who trust each other, and I'm very confident that post the visit of Prime Minister Modi to the United States, things will only get better and better. India is open to expanding trade with the United States. Mutual benefit is our credo. It has to be a win-win for both countries. And I can assure you, Rahul, India and the United States, the world's largest and biggest democracies, will be friends today, will be friends forever, and work in partnership for the benefit of the people of both countries.
Piyush ji, you've been very deliberate in your moves on trade deals. And when, for example, you signed a deal with Europe, there was a $100 billion investment commitment from those countries and their companies into the Indian economy. Now you're dealing with a very different American president who's instead insisting that Indian companies and global companies come and make in America and make America great. So you've got Make in India and you've got Make in America playing out both at the same time. So how does that impact your negotiating capabilities when you're in these discussions? Because you got an approach of a president who's willing to ram home. We've seen what he's done with Canada, what he's doing with China, and threatening to do that with India. He may not, it may be just a negotiating tactic to push you back, but I want to understand how you're grappling with the situation.
I don't think you've read the story correctly, Rahul. In fact, what their problems with China or Mexico or even Canada are very different than what we have to offer. The Make in India and Make in America actually complement each other. India is moving up the value chain and is in a way supporting American manufacturing, whereas China or Canada are hurting American manufacturing. So if India provides a particular good, more often than not it's an intermediate product, which we make in India, we support the American economy. Take for example aircrafts. We are the world's largest buyer of aircrafts. We have 1,700 large commercial planes on order between Boeing and Airbus. But are you aware that last year we had exported $1 million worth of components for Boeing? And in the current year, by March 25, we expect to export $1.8 billion worth of products to Boeing. We have 1,600 global capability centers running in India and supporting American manufacturing. So we are two economies that really complement each other. We are at a level where we are going up the value chain. America needs trusted partners, and therefore I believe that together we will make America great, we will make India successful, and both countries will add jobs, both countries will support and supplement each other's ambitions and big targets.
You know, it's good to see our chief negotiator putting up a confident positioning, and that is very important as you go into what I can imagine behind the scenes and off the camera would be a very complicated situation, because they'll also press, for example, on concessions on agriculture, which is very politically sensitive in India, and you've dealt with the farmers, you've dealt with their expectations, which are of a very different kind in terms of minimum support price. And here you'll have the Americans, the Canadians, everybody asking for concessions on the politically contentious issue of agricultural produce. What's your reading and understanding of trying to deal with that?
I can assure you, Rahul, we will be sensitive to our farmers, to the concerns of our farmers, protect their interests, protect the interests of our dairy, and yet strike a win-win deal with President Trump and with the United States.
Sir, since time is limited, I've heard you in the past, in your conversations with India Inc., through industry chambers, urge India Inc. to step up to the investment plate and do much more. How concerned are you about the fact that while in some sectors we're seeing additional private investment come in across the board, there hasn't been a virtuous kickoff in the investment cycle as would be expected given the kind of corporate tax cuts that you've done a few years ago? And are you hopeful that that is changing now? What's your message to try and get India Inc. to invest more? You've been frustrated about that in the past. How acute is the level of frustration now, and is it changing in your reading, Minister?
I think it's a pretty good situation right now. The frustration you're talking of is a very old frustration, and that was quite a bit to do with the legacy we had inherited, where Indian industry had seen a series of corruption scams, had seen a fragile five economy. It was the period from 14 to 17, 18, when Indian industry was very hesitant to invest, given the complications and the high level of corruption that the Congress and the UP had left behind. When they saw the amount of effort and the steps taken to clean up the system, eliminate corruption, for making ease of doing business. I have so many friends who used to come once a week or every week to Delhi. Now they don't come even once in a year. They say everything happens on its own. Most things are online. We don't have to come to central government at all. So I jokingly was asking somebody that I'll have to create a roadblock for you to come and meet me. Nobody needs to come to Delhi anymore. Now, as Honorable Finance Minister explained, we are going to try and work with the states and incentivize states to try and make them conscious that in this competitive world, they'll have to focus on ease of doing business at the state level also. Having said that, we are requesting industry all the time to give us newer ideas, better ideas. If whatever we can do, we have Jan Vishwas 2 bill coming up, 100 provisions or so are already identified. We are looking for more ideas and are happy to commit to make it very easy to do business, commit to handholding investors and business persons, to add more jobs in the country, to add economic activity, and truly make India a developed and prosperous nation. Viksit Bharat 2047 is not a dream. It's the collective commitment, the will of 1.4 billion people. It's 140 crore Indians driven by passion, driven by a collective effort to make that happen. And no power on earth can stop it from.
One last question before I let you go. The opposition is critiquing the budget, saying that the fiscal deficit targets have been achieved by underspending on PLI, Skill India, crop insurance scheme, saying that you allocated a 30% expansion in public infrastructure spends, but you couldn't achieve it. So they're saying you're making the noise, setting the target, but not being able to deliver on the ground. How do you respond to this critique from the opposition?
Well, I think opposition is failing to remember how badly they used to miss out on budget targets. I used to do a lot of this analysis in the old days, and I remember budgets going totally haywire. What the original budget said and what the revised budget and the final outcomes were three different stories altogether. We are very conservative. We understate and overperform. And what is the shortfall? The shortfall is a few percent. It's not as if there's a 20-30% shortfall like we used to see in the UPA times. And we have already gone on record that the first 3 months election period and then the monsoon, the first half of the current year, we didn't see the kind of speed of action that we are seeing in the third quarter. And now January has been a good month also. So we are very confident that by the time the year ends, we would have met most of our targets. Next year also, we have an ambitious target to meet, and we stand committed to ensuring that the economy grows, the people benefit, our middle class brothers and sisters celebrate additional disposable income, celebrate that most of them will become tax-free altogether, celebrate the lakh of rupees that each one earning up to 25 lakh rupees will be saving, and certainly contribute to the Viksit Bharat 2047 journey in the Amrit Kaal.
Thank you very much for joining us, and all the best with dealing with the deal maker, Donald Trump. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what the end outcome is. You're sounding confident and charged up, and you're a good negotiator. We've seen that in the past, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Mr. Goyal, for joining us, thank you.
Thank you.